What's up everyone, welcome back to another video. Game week 38 is over. The season, the 2020-21 FPL season is over. Doesn't mean that the video stopped. We're going to have a look back at how I got on, how my season got on overall, a little bit of a few talking points and tips for you guys to take forward, and then a few more exciting awards and players that I really enjoyed owning and maybe some that I enjoyed less. So let's get into that video. Starting off as we always do, so my game week 38 transfers. So I decided to make one transfer this game week, which was the selling of Son Heung-min from Tottenham. Now, he has been good throughout the whole season. He's been a player I've really enjoyed owning. However, recently his form has dipped and he did have a difficult fixture away at Leicester in the final game week. Son did score 5 points, so he did get an attacking return. However, in his place, I bought Sadio Mane of Liverpool. Now, Mane got 2 goals, 3 bonus points, 2 appearance points, and a clean sheet points to get him a total of 16 points, which meant this free transfer gave me a boost of a whole 11 points. So a final transfer to be remembered. Really pleased with that final move. In terms of how this meant that I lined up and that my points meant overall, I start off with Ederson in goal, who returned 12 points. Finally, I feel like I've been in and out with the points with him. He got dropped for Carson, then he's been back in, conceded 3 to Brighton, but came in the final game week with a massive 12-pointer with a clean sheet and a penalty save. I'm not sure there's anything sweeter in FPL than having your goalkeeper save a penalty. Into the defence, again, a really nice return here from Soufal. Soufal is a player that I've loved owning and one that I've sort of talked about, that he has a lot of potential, and it finally came true after a while in game week 38. Clean sheet, an assist and a bonus point for Soufal gave him a total of 10 points. Really pleased with how the season ended for him. Next up, not quite so happy, we do have double Leeds. Leeds and Dallas conceded very late on. Now, the ownership of Leeds was very high, but I still would have liked that clean sheet. And Rafinha, who I brought in last week, with just a 5-pointer with an assist. Nothing too spectacular. He doesn't seem to really have that explosive potential, and it may be something worth remembering for next season. He always looks great and is always good for an assist or a goal, but he never really explodes and gets those double-digit hauls that we expect of him. Next up, we have our triple Liverpool. Now, we start off with Trent with a 5-point with a clean sheet but a yellow card. Now, given that the ownership of Liverpool defence is so high, this didn't really do anything for me. Ownership of Salah again was very high with 12 points, doubled from 6 with just an assist and a clean sheet point, but it really was Mane that made the difference for me on top of the Soufal and Ederson double-digit returns. A big differential there with Mane with 16 points, so he was the real Liverpool asset that performed for me this week. Next up, we add my vice-captain in Harry Kane. Now, Harry Kane's ownership had dipped a bit this week, given people moving to the likes of Antonio or Patrick Bamford. However, a goal and assist for Harry Kane as Tottenham put 4 past Leicester in that 4-2 victory. A very good way for him to end the season, as he ends the season as the top goal scorer and top assister this season. Next up, we add double West Ham. Now, this was a big disappointment for me. However, given how late they returned for me in game week 37, I will let them off the hook. And given how well Soufal returned as a trio both last week and this week, I'm very pleased with them. No returns for Lingard or Antonio in game week 38, but they've been very good assets to own throughout the duration of this season. Finally, we have Iheanacho. So I decided to keep Iheanacho because I did expect there to be goals in the Tottenham versus Leicester game, and although it finished 4-2, there was no returns for Iheanacho in this match. He's been a great asset and definitely one I'll look at for the start of next season, but just 2 this week. On my bench, I left Forster, Smith-Rowe, Saiz and Konsa. Now, all of these players blanked, so no real benching headaches for me there, and I made the right decisions overall. Now, overall, this gave me a score of 79 for the final game week of the season. It always leaves a good taste in your mouth when you finish the season on a high. So 79, I was absolutely buzzing with that. It meant that I finished this season on 2,521 points, my highest ever points total in FPL, and gave me a game week rank for the final game week season of just 100,000. So, as I said, an absolutely brilliant way to end the season. So, with my old rank before this game week being 7.5k, quite where did I finish? Did I get that top 10k finish that I was aiming for? Let's have a drum roll, please. So my season rank overall was 3,819, absolutely buzzing with that. The highest I've ever finished in the game. A hard season, definitely, but so happy that I got there. Not just in the top 10k that I was aiming for, but into the top 5 and even the top 4k with a massive last game week that practically halved my rank overall. I couldn't ask for anywhere else to end the season. I was absolutely ecstatic with that. So let me know how you got on. Where did you finish in the overall ranking? What did you get in Game Week 38? But as I said, I was very happy with how it ended and how I got on. So with that being said, let's have a bit of a review of the season and how it could affect us going forward. So my season rank, as you can see here, it did start off a bit jumping around as it always does in the early game weeks, but from sort of game week 7 to game week 9, I made my way up into high rankings and managed to stay there for the rest of the season. If we break that down, I know a few graphs, so anyone who's not that into graphs may be switching off the video now, but it's definitely a good way of visualizing my season. We can see that I very much did have red arrows, so from that game week 25 to game week 31 for example, there are plenty of red arrows in there, but what I really did well this season was make the most of my green arrows. My green arrows were much larger than any of my red arrows, which meant that the second half of my season particularly, although I did get plenty of red arrows, it meant that I moved up the overall ranking. So that's how my season progressed. In terms of my captaincy, I did hit the captain majority of the game weeks with a success rate of 64%, missing 14 captains and hitting 24. Happy with that. There was a period over Christmas that you can see in the middle there where I hit about 1 captain in 8 game weeks. However, throughout the rest of the season, I did definitely a good job with my captaincy picks. I made a total of 9 hits this season and I didn't take a bigger hit than a -4. Although in previous seasons there has been times to take hits, this definitely wasn't the season for it, and that hits were not really paying off, and only taking a -4, not going into those -8s or a -12 definitely benefited me this season. So it's something I will continue to think about going into my next season. So that was a little bit of a review of my season, so let's move on to my manager of the month for May. For anyone who didn't know, each month I give away £5 to the winner of that month's league, so make sure to join next season's league as the code will be up before Game Week 1 to be in a chance for winning £5 each and every single month. So just to go in and have a little bit of an analysis of who won this month. So congratulations to Matt, Pratik and Aminul for getting into the top 3 this month. However, they were just beaten by a combination of Jean-Paul and Saral, who tied this month for 340 points. So either of you want to drop me a message to claim your prize and we can get that sorted for you. Congratulations to everyone who's won my Manager of the Month competitions throughout the season. It will be back again next season, so make sure to look out for my league code. In terms of my overall league that isn't just running each month, let's have a look. So congratulations to Christoph, Jerome, Patricia and Kanishk, all for finishing in the top 5. Amazing seasons, all finishing inside the top 1k. Very strong finishes there. However, it was beaten by George Morris, 2,598, finishing inside the top 200 places. Massive season for George, so do contact me if you are watching to claim your prize for winning that. And as I said, look out for the next season for the code to join my league for a chance to win all of these prizes. So with those being said, let's have a look at a few FPL Tips season awards for the players. So first of all, my favourite players. My first favourite player to own this season is Martinez of Aston Villa. He's been a great asset that started at a very cheap price and has just risen and risen. He's been a great goalkeeper to own with clean sheets, save points and bonus points. He's been one of my favourite and highest performing players so far this season. Next up we add Mohamed Salah of Liverpool, again a player that has done very well for a lot of us. He's been, particularly in the second half of the season, has been a captain option. He was also my highest scoring captain of the season. With game week 1 I captained him for a 20-point haul, so I was very happy with that early on and has been a consistent player in my team. He did dip in form a little bit over Christmas, which were where a lot of those captaincy blanks came from, but he came good in the second half of the season and we know how many points he returned going into those final few game weeks alongside Mane in my team. Finally, we have Harry Kane of Tottenham. Now, how could I do this video without Harry Kane in there? So the highest goal scorer and highest assister, I've owned him for almost the whole season. I didn't quite have him in game week 1 and 2. However, he's been a mainstay in my team ever since, as I'm sure he has been for a lot of you. Constantly being a good captain option, as well as just ticking along the points against whoever he played if I did captain someone else. Kane is definitely going to get a price increase next season, whether he stays at Tottenham or goes elsewhere. He's definitely going to be a player that I will look to own again, given how consistent he has been in terms of those returns. So in terms of the obvious picks, my top 3 have been Martinez, Salah and Kane for this season. Next up, we have my favourite differentials. So the first one that I'm picking is Ederson in goal. So he has been a player that I've not owned for that much of the season. However, given his penalty save in game week 38, he had to make this list. 12 points in game week 38, which pretty much just transformed those final few game weeks of the season. It also happened very early in the game week, so it put my mind at rest that whatever happened elsewhere, I was going to have a pretty good game week given that. So Ederson, I can't thank you enough for that penalty save if you are watching me. Next up, we have Soufal. Now, again, a player that I've loved owning. He's been so consistent for West Ham, constantly putting in a 7 or 8 out of 10 performance every week, as well as the occasional 9 and 10 out of 10. He's been great for clean sheet potential this season, as well as those attacking threats. You always know what he's going to get for you, and he's going to play every single week. So I've loved owning Soufal, and he's definitely produced the points to show that he is worth owning. He'll probably go up in price next season to 5 or 5.5 million even, given the way West Ham have performed this season, but I will definitely consider him even if he does that price increase, because he's been great to own this season. The final differential that I've loved owning, of course, is Sadio Mane. Now, he got 2 goals for me in game week 38, so maybe that's a bit of recency bias. However, I did also own him early in the season and on my game week 36 free hit. So he did score again in that game week, so I'm very happy with how Mane's returned. He hasn't had his best season for Liverpool. He hasn't scored nearly as many goals. His price will probably drop next season. However, when I have owned him, he's been a great player for me. So thank you to Ederson, Soufal and Mane for being great differentials to help me go a little bit against the grain and get the points when I needed them. Finally, we have my most hated players. So these aren't players that I hate in real life. These are just players that I feel like I've never owned when they scored points, and when they do score points cause me such a massive red arrow. I think they're great footballers in real life, just to say that, but from an FPL point of view, they've caused me nothing but pain. The first one we have is James Justin. Now, I was one of those that fell into the trap of, oh, Pereira will be back soon, so I need to sell him for when that happened because James Justin will lose his place. He continued to play throughout the rest of the season until, unfortunately, he did pick up an injury. I never bought him back, and he continued to score points. Clean sheets, goals, assists, bonus points, you name it. Everything he seemed to do when he wasn't in my team. So Justin, although you're a great player and I hope your future career at Leicester is brilliant, you were nothing but painful this season. Next up, we have Harvey Barnes of Leicester again. Another Leicester player that I owned for about 3 game weeks this season. He returned in about 7 consecutive game weeks. Then I brought him in thinking he's a great asset. He blanked for 3 game weeks while I owned him. Then I sold him before he returned 12 points against Liverpool and a following points in the game weeks after. It just seemed to be the times that I owned Harvey Barnes, he didn't nearly do what I was expecting him to do. So again, a great player for some of you, I'm sure, this season, but for when I owned him, it was very painful. The final one we have to complete the Leicester triple up. Now, this has got nothing to do at all with being a Chelsea fan and Leicester beating us in the FA Cup final, but I just had a very love-hate relationship with Leicester this season, and most of all, it's been a hate-hate relationship, to be honest. I've not owned Vardy particularly this season. I owned him on my Game Week 31 wildcard for about 6 weeks, and he just blanked for me every single week apart from one. He had the potential to get so many returns, but while everyone else was owning Iheanacho, I had Vardy in my team and he did absolutely nothing. You could have done so much. We know what you've been like in previous seasons, Vardy, but for me this season, my 3 most hated players all play for Leicester, and it is Justin, Barnes and Jamie Vardy. So finally, let's get onto my overall FPL team of the season. So this isn't who I think is the best player in the league. This is from my FPL team, who has scored me the most points, who I've enjoyed owning the most, and so who's given me this overall rank that I've earned. It's not to do with how they've played in real life, it's just based on my FPL team. So we start off in goal, and it was a tough choice between Martinez and Ederson, but I have gone with Martinez. Martinez was in my team for such a long period of time, constantly getting those clean sheets, bonus points, save points, the lot. He was always getting those returns, so it has to be Martinez in goal for me. Into the defence, the three that I've gone with are Trent, Soufal and Cancelo. So Cancelo has actually ended the season slightly worse than he did maybe during the sort of latter part of the middle stage of the season, around Christmas and after that. We know what he was capable of. He did some great returns, including goals, assists, and he was one while others were going Stones and Diaz. I went with Cancelo and really enjoyed owning him and watching him. Soufal next, I've spoken about him. He's just so consistent, bonus points as well because of the amount of crosses he puts in, attacking returns, and then a massive way to end the season with 10 points. Trent is my third defender, who I own sporadically throughout the season, as well as his teammate Robertson. Particularly at the latter end of the season, he really came into me to help me get that final boost I needed, so that's why Trent is my third defender in my team. Moving on to the midfield now, we have two to start with here with Fernandes and Son. I think these are quite self-explanatory for a lot of players. Fernandes was actually the highest scoring player for me this season if you include the amount of points I got from captaining him. I owned him for a lot after he started to gain momentum in the first half of the season, even though I didn't start game week 1 with him. And Son has been a player that's ticked along for me, particularly in that first half of the season with his combination with Harry Kane. So Fernandes and Son, probably two obvious picks there, but definitely in my FPL team of the season. Next up we have Salah and Gundogan. So Salah, as I said, a player particularly in the second half of the season and very early on in the first half. He did dip during Christmas around that time, but you can't have an FPL team this season, I don't think, without Salah. The next one we have is Gundogan. Now I brought Gundogan in very early on as he hit that purple patch around when De Bruyne got injured. Constantly getting goals, assists. Now he did drop in form in terms of FPL points going into the latter stage of the season, but he's definitely a player that I enjoyed owning and got me a lot of points, including some good captaincy returns. Just before we get into the forward line, let me know who would be in your FPL team of the season, any players so far that I've missed, or who your three forwards would be. So the forwards for me to start with, of course, is Harry Kane. I don't need to talk about this very much. I owned him for almost the whole season, bringing him in on my Game Week 5 wildcard, and I don't think I transferred him out once. He has the most goals and assists and has constantly been a good returner for me, both captaincy and also when I didn't captain him. So Harry Kane definitely leading the line. Next up we have Bamford and Calvert-Lewin. So Bamford was a player I owned in the second half of the season as he continued to trickle in the goals for Leeds. Definitely a player that I think will get a big price increase next season given how well Leeds have played, but definitely a forward that was underpriced this season. I got on him early enough and definitely reaped the rewards of that. Calvert-Lewin is a player that was amazing for me in the first half this season. I started game week 1 with him and he went on such a good scoring run, including scoring a hat-trick in the first 3 game weeks. So he has ended the season poorly, particularly after Christmas where a lot of us sold him. However, he has to be in that team of the season given his form in the first half of the year. So that's my starting 11, a few notable mentions that I put on my bench. So we have Ederson, of course, because of his penalty saves and how well he did for me in the last couple of game weeks. Chilwell because of the form that Chelsea defence showed all throughout the season. I could have had Rudiger for the second half of the season. However, I had Chilwell for the first half and he was great for goals and assists more than Rudiger was in my team. So Chilwell gets that shout. Mane next because of when I did own him sporadic throughout the season, I managed to pick his form well for when he was going to score some goals. And finally I've gone with Kyle Walker-Peters of Southampton. Now since Christmas, since the turn of the year, Southampton have been absolutely dreadful. However, Southampton in the first half of the season with Vestergaard, Ward-Prowse, McCarthy and Walker-Peters have all been really good assets to own. He was definitely a player that had attacking threat, he got clean sheets, he got bonus points for me in that first half. So second half of the season I wouldn't have dreamt of owning him, but when I did own him in that first half of the season, he's definitely in my team of the season for me. So that's my team of the season. That's a bit of a roundup of my season, but just before we go, I want to put one more big final thank you from me after what's been an absolutely great season. So as I said, I just want to say a massive thank you to all for supporting me, for watching my videos, for coming to my live streams. We'll be back next season, of course, the pre-season. There'll be a bit of Euro 2021 content as well for all of you asking. So I hope that I've helped your season at some point or entertained you in some way. We've hit 21,000 followers over on Twitter and we've hit 4.7 thousand subscribers on YouTube. This is so much more than I ever managed for this season, and I look forward, I actually can't wait for the season to come back and to start doing it all over again. It's all down to you guys, so I just wanted to put a little bit of a thank you. I can't thank you all enough for the support. We'll be back next season. I look forward to doing it all over again and hopefully growing this community that we're making a little bit more than we have. So one big final thank you. I hope you've enjoyed this season. I've had so much fun doing it, and I will see you all for Euro 2021 and then again for next season of FPL. With that being said, for one final time, thank you all so much for your support this season. If you've enjoyed this video or anything you've seen, hit that like button, but more importantly, turn on that subscribe button, hit that notification bell for when I do start for next season so you can get ahead of your mini league rivals. I will see you all very soon for Euro 2021 and then back again for the next season of FPL. I've enjoyed it so much. I hope you have. Thank you again, and I will see you all next time.